What if one of the most controversial and highest-grossing faith-based films in history returned, not just as a sequel, but as two separate theatrical releases? Well, it's happening. After nearly 2 decades of speculation, Mel Gibson's follow-up to The Passion of the Christ is officially back on the calendar. And this time, it's being split into 2 parts. Lionsgate has finally locked in the release dates, and they aren't random. They're loaded with symbolic meaning. So let's break this down. When are the films releasing? Part 1 of The Resurrection of the Christ will hit theaters March 16, 2027, which just so happens to fall on Good Friday, the day Christians around the world remember the crucifixion of Jesus. Then, exactly 40 days later, Part 2 lands in theaters on May 6, 2027, which marks Ascension Day, a major Christian holy day celebrating the belief that Jesus ascended into heaven. Yeah, those dates weren't picked by accident. What can we expect from the 2 parts? Now, while the full story structure hasn't been revealed, it's not hard to connect the dots. Part 1 will likely focus on the immediate aftermath of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Part 2, most likely the events leading up to and including his ascension. But here's where it gets interesting. Director Mel Gibson isn't just dusting off old material. He's reportedly co-written 2 separate scripts, and he described one of them as an acid trip that takes audiences into other realms. Yep, you heard that right. We're talking spiritual dimensions, metaphysical journeys, possibly even visions or theological interpretations that go beyond what we saw in The Passion. And of course, Caviezel is back in the role of Jesus, reprising the performance that made headlines worldwide back in 2004. Let's not forget, The Passion of the Christ was made on a modest $30 million budget, and went on to gross over $612 million globally. Despite being polarizing, it made cinematic history and became a cultural talking point for years. And now? With modern-day effects, a potentially surreal narrative style, and deeper dives into spiritual lore, this could be one of the boldest biblical adaptations Hollywood has ever attempted. Whether you're a believer, a film buff, or just curious about Gibson's return to religious filmmaking, this project is shaping up to be something massive, and possibly very different from what anyone is expecting. So now the big question is, do you think splitting the resurrection story into 2 parts will enhance the storytelling? And what do you want to see explored in these films that the original Passion didn't cover? Drop your thoughts in the comments.